Ma'am, your baby is disturbing everyone. You need to control it or we'll have to take measures.
Ma'am, I'm going to need you to control your child, or I'll have to ask you to leave the aircraft. Amanda's breath stopped. The entire cabin went silent. Felicity Hargrove stood over her, arms crossed, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Deliberate, performative cruelty. Leave the aircraft? Amanda's voice shook. We're 30,000 feet in the air. Then I suggest, Felicity said, her smile cold and sharp as glass, you figure out how to keep that baby quiet. Because passengers in first class have complained, and frankly, I'm not sure someone in your situation should be traveling with an infant if you can't manage basic. My situation? Amanda stood. Zoelle clutched to her chest, her voice rising for the first time. Say what you mean. Go ahead. Say it. Felicity's eyes narrowed. Ma'am, sit down, or I will have the captain. I'd like to speak to your supervisor, Amanda said, her whole body trembling. I am the senior attendant on this flight. And if you don't comply, you'll be flagged as a disruptive passenger and banned from this airline. Amanda felt the blood drain from her face. What Felicity didn't know, what nobody in that cabin knew, was that the CEO of Ascendant Airways, the man who built this airline from nothing, was waiting in London for his wife and daughter to come home. And he was about to find out exactly what had just happened to them. Hi, wonderful viewer. Thank you for stopping by to listen to this wonderful story today. Please, while you are still here, please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up and don't forget to tell me where you are watching from in the comments below. Now, relax while the story unfolds. The alarm didn't wake Amanda Johnson. She was already awake. She had been for hours. Lying in the pre-dawn darkness of their Johannesburg apartment, she'd watched the ceiling fan rotate in lazy circles, listening to the city hum beyond the curtains. Zoelle had nursed at 4. Then again at 5:30. Now at 6, Amanda sat on the edge of the bed, her daughter asleep in the bassinet beside her, and felt the weight of the day pressing down on her shoulders before it had even begun. She was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix. The kind that lived in her bones. The apartment was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Sandton skyline, marble countertops in the kitchen, art on the walls that Declan had chosen with care. It was the kind of home she'd dreamed of as a girl growing up in a cramped flat in Soweto, where the walls were thin and the winters were cold, and her mother worked herself to exhaustion cleaning other people's houses. But this morning, the beauty felt hollow. Because Declan wasn't here. He'd left 3 days ago for London. Meetings, he'd said. Always meetings. Always something urgent, something that couldn't wait. And Amanda understood she did. He was building something. Not just for himself, but for them. For Zoelle. For the future. But understanding didn't make the loneliness easier. She rose slowly, her body still aching from childbirth 2 months prior, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. The coffee maker beeped softly as it brewed. She poured herself a cup, black, and stood at the window, watching the sun bleed orange across the horizon. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Declan, morning love. Hope you slept. Can't wait to see you tonight. Safe flight. She stared at the message. Typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Amanda, we'll be fine. See you soon. She didn't tell him she hadn't slept. Didn't tell him that Zoelle had been fussy all night, that her back ached, that she felt like she was holding herself together with sheer will. She didn't tell him because he'd worry, and worrying wouldn't change anything. He was already in London. She was already here. So she'd do what she always did. She'd manage. By the time she finished packing the diaper bag, bottles, wipes, diapers, changes of clothes, teething rings, burp cloths, pacifiers, the sun was fully up. Zoelle woke with a soft cry, and Amanda lifted her from the bassinet, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Hey, sweet girl, she whispered. Big day today. We're going to see Daddy. Zoelle blinked up at her with wide, dark eyes, Declan's eyes, and Amanda felt her heart clench. She changed her, fed her, dressed her in a tiny lavender onesie that made her look impossibly small. Then she dressed herself, jeans, a simple white blouse, comfortable flats. She pulled her hair into a low bun, applied minimal makeup. She looked at herself in the mirror. Tired, but presentable. Good enough. She called an Uber. Loaded the car seat, the diaper bag, her carry-on. The driver, a kind older man, helped her with the bags and made small talk about the weather. She smiled politely, answered in short sentences, kept Zoelle calm in her lap. At the airport, she checked in at the Ascendant Airways counter. The agent, a young woman with a bright smile, cooed over Zoelle. How old? 2 months. Oh, she's precious. First time flying. Amanda nodded. You'll do great, Mama. Just keep her fed and she'll sleep right through. Amanda smiled. She hoped so. Security was a blur of removing shoes, folding the stroller, holding Zoelle while they scanned the diaper bag. A TSA agent asked her to open a bottle of formula. She complied, cheeks warm, aware of the eyes on her. By the time she reached the gate, she was exhausted. But she still had 8 hours ahead of her. She found a seat near the window, away from the crowd, and rocked Zoelle gently. The baby was calm now, her little fingers curled around Amanda's thumb. Amanda looked down at her and felt a swell of love so fierce it almost hurt. Just you and me today, Zoe, she whispered. We've got this. But even as she said it, a small, traitorous voice whispered back. Do we? 3,000 miles away, in a glass-walled conference room on the 15th floor of Ascendant Airways London headquarters, Declan Johnson was losing his patience. Run that by me again, he said, his voice even but edged with steel. The VP of Operations, a pale, nervous man named Clifford, shuffled his papers. The customer satisfaction scores in economy have dipped by 4% over the last quarter. We're seeing complaints about service delays, staffing shortages. Staffing shortages? Declan leaned forward, his jaw tight. We hired 30 new flight attendants last month. Yes, sir. But turnover is high. Training costs are. I don't care about training costs. Declan's voice was quiet, but everyone in the room went still. I care about passengers. Every single person who steps onto one of our planes should feel valued. That's the standard. That's non-negotiable. Clifford swallowed. Of course, sir. Declan sat back, exhaling slowly. He was tired. Bone-tired. He'd been in back-to-back meetings since 6 a.m., and it was nearly noon now. His phone sat face down on the table, but he could feel it buzzing intermittently. Messages. Emails. A dozen fires to put out. But all he could think about was Amanda. She was flying in tonight. She and Zoelle. He hadn't seen them in 3 days, and the ache of it sat heavy in his chest. He missed the sound of Zoelle's little coos in the morning. Missed the way Amanda hummed while she moved around the kitchen. Missed the weight of her head on his shoulder at night. He'd built this company from nothing. Worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed sleep, relationships, peace of mind. And he'd done it for her. So she'd never have to struggle the way his mother had. So their daughter would grow up with opportunities he'd never had. But lately, he wondered if he was sacrificing the wrong things. His assistant, a sharp young woman named Thandai, poked her head into the conference room. Mr. Johnson, your wife's flight board's in 20 minutes. He nodded, checked his watch. If the meeting wrapped in the next 10 minutes, he could make it to Heathrow by the time she landed. Let's table this, he said, standing. Clifford, I want a full report on training protocols by end of week. If we're failing our passengers, we're failing ourselves. Understood? Yes, sir. Declan gathered his things, slipped his phone into his pocket, and strode out of the room. Thandai fell into step beside him. Your car's waiting downstairs. I've sent the flight details to your phone. She should land at 9 p.m. Thank you. He paused at the elevator, then turned to her. Thandai, do me a favor. Pull the passenger manifest for that flight. I want to know if there are any VIPs on board. And check the crew roster. She nodded, already typing into her tablet. On it. The elevator doors closed, and Declan leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. Just a few more hours, he thought. Then I'll have them home. But as the elevator descended, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen. Board meeting moved up to 7 p.m. attendance mandatory. His stomach sank. He typed quickly, Can we reschedule? The reply was instant, no. Critical vote on the merger. Need you there. Declan stared at the screen. Then at his wedding ring. He thought of Amanda's face this morning in the photo she'd sent. Her holding Zoelle, smiling, but with shadows under her eyes. He typed a message to her. Declan, meeting ran late. I'll have a car waiting for you. I'm so sorry, love. I'll be home as soon as I can. He hesitated, then hit send. The elevator reached the lobby. He stepped out into the cold London afternoon, guilt settling over him like a weight. Amanda was halfway through the boarding process when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Declan, meeting ran late. I'll have a car waiting for you. I'm so sorry, love. I'll be home as soon as I can. She read it twice, then locked her phone and slipped it into her bag. Her jaw tightened. She didn't reply. Zoelle stirred against her chest, and Amanda adjusted the baby carrier, shifting the diaper bag higher on her shoulder. The line moved slowly. Families with strollers. Business travelers with sleek carry-ons. A group of college students laughing too loud. And Amanda alone with a 2-month-old and a heart that felt heavier with every step. When she finally reached the gate agent, the woman, middle-aged, brisk, efficient, scanned her boarding pass and gestured toward the jetway. Economy's boarding now. Straight down, to the left. Amanda nodded. Thank you. She walked down the jetway, her footsteps echoing. The air smelled like recycled air and cleaning solution. Zoelle made a small noise, and Amanda patted her back gently. Almost there, baby. Almost there. She stepped onto the plane. The first-class cabin stretched before her. Wide leather seats, soft lighting, passengers already settled with glasses of champagne and warm towels. A flight attendant, tall and polished, smiled as Amanda passed. Welcome aboard. Amanda murmured a thank you and kept walking. Past first class. Past the galley. Into economy. The seats were smaller. The aisles narrower. The overhead bins already crowded. Amanda found her row, 32B, a middle seat, and her heart sank. A man in the aisle seat, heavy-set and already asleep, didn't stir. The window seat was empty. Amanda maneuvered carefully, trying not to wake him, and lowered herself into the middle seat. Zoelle whimpered. Shoo, shoo, Amanda whispered, adjusting the carrier. We're okay. She buckled her seatbelt, placed the diaper bag under the seat in front of her, and closed her eyes. 8 hours, she thought. You can do 8 hours. But as the plane began to fill, as passengers jostled for space and overhead bins slammed shut, as a baby 2 rows back began to wail, Amanda felt the exhaustion creeping back in. She opened her eyes and caught sight of a flight attendant moving down the aisle. Blonde. Perfectly made up. Smile like a billboard. Her name tag read, Felicity Hargrove. Amanda looked away. She didn't know it yet. But in 90 minutes, that woman would change everything. The flight had been in the air for an hour when Zoelle started to cry. It began as a whimper, soft, almost apologetic. But within seconds it escalated into a full-throated wail that cut through the hum of the engines and the murmur of passengers. Amanda's stomach dropped. Shoo, baby, shoo, she whispered, bouncing Zoelle gently against her chest. She checked the diaper. Dry. She offered a pacifier. Zoelle spat it out. She tried rocking, swaying, humming, all the things that usually worked. Nothing. Around her, she felt the shift. The subtle turning of heads. The pointed sighs. A man across the aisle pulled his headphones tighter. A woman in front glanced back, her expression tight. Amanda's cheeks burned. I'm sorry, she murmured to no one in particular. I'm so sorry. She unbuckled carefully, stood in the cramped space between seats, and began to walk. Zoelle's cries softened slightly with the movement. Amanda paced the narrow aisle, one hand supporting her daughter's head, the other steadying herself against the seats. Breathe. Just breathe. She reached the back galley, turned, and started walking forward again. A few passengers glanced up. Most looked away. One older white woman smiled sympathetically. Amanda tried to smile back, but her face felt frozen. That's when she saw her. Felicity Hargrove was standing near row 28, her blonde hair pulled into a flawless bun, her smile bright and professional. She was handing a passenger a beverage, laughing lightly at something he'd said. Then her eyes landed on Amanda. The smile didn't falter, but something in her gaze shifted. Cooled. She finished with the passenger and walked toward Amanda, heels clicking softly against the cabin floor. Ma'am, Felicity said, her voice honeyed but firm. Is everything all right? Amanda nodded quickly. Yes. She's just fussy. I'm walking her to calm her down. I see. Felicity's eyes swept over Zoelle, then over Amanda, her wrinkled blouse, the spit-up stain on her shoulder, the diaper bag slipping down her arm. We do need to be mindful of noise levels. Other passengers are trying to rest. Amanda's throat tightened. I understand. I'm doing my best. Of course. Felicity's smile stretched thinner. But perhaps it would be best if you returned to your seat. For safety. Amanda hesitated. Zoelle was finally starting to settle. But she nodded. Okay. Just give me one more minute. Felicity's expression hardened just a fraction. Ma'am, I need you to sit down now. The words weren't loud. But they carried. Several passengers looked up. Amanda felt her face flush hot. She nodded again, turned, and walked back to her seat. Zoelle, sensing her mother's tension, began to cry again. By the time Amanda sat down, her hands were shaking. 30 minutes later, Zoelle was still crying. Amanda had tried everything. She'd fed her, changed her again, rocked her, sung to her. But Zoelle was teething, and the pressure in the cabin was making it worse, and there was nothing Amanda could do except endure. And so she did. She held her daughter close, whispered apologies into her hair, and tried to ignore the stares. Until Felicity returned. This time, she wasn't alone. Another flight attendant, younger, with dark hair and kind eyes, stood slightly behind her. Her name tag read Sienna Kovac. Felicity stopped directly beside Amanda's row, her smile now a thin, brittle thing. "Ma'am," she said, her voice just loud enough for the surrounding rows to hear. "I've received multiple complaints about the noise." Amanda looked up, her eyes stinging. "I'm sorry." She's teething. "I'm trying." "I understand that infants can be difficult," Felicity interrupted smoothly. "But you need to understand that other passengers have paid for a comfortable flight experience." The words hit like a slap. Amanda's breath caught. I'm doing everything I can." Felicity tilted her head, her expression a mask of polite concern. "Perhaps you should have considered whether flying was appropriate for your situation." The cabin went silent. Amanda stared at her. "My situation? Traveling alone with an infant," Felicity clarified, her tone dripping with false sympathy. "It can be overwhelming, especially for—" Her eyes flicked meaningfully over Amanda's face, her clothes, her seat assignment. "For some passengers." Amanda's heart slammed against her ribs. She knew exactly what Felicity meant. The air in the cabin felt thick, suffocating. Amanda's hands trembled as she pulled Zoelle closer. She wanted to speak, wanted to scream, wanted to tell this woman that her husband owned this airline, that she didn't have to sit here and take this. But the words wouldn't come, because even if she said them, even if Felicity believed her, it wouldn't erase the shame burning through her chest. It wouldn't change the fact that she'd been looked at and found lacking. It wouldn't undo the way Felicity's eyes had swept over her skin, her baby, her economy seat, and decided she didn't belong. So instead, Amanda whispered, "I understand." "Good." Felicity's smile returned, bright and victorious. "I'm sure the rest of the flight will go smoothly." She turned to leave, but a voice stopped her. "Excuse me." An older black woman sitting across the aisle leaned forward, her eyes sharp and unyielding. Her name was Lorraine Batha, though Amanda didn't know that yet. "What?" Lorraine said slowly. "Did you just say to her?" Felicity blinked. "I'm sorry. You heard me." Lorraine's voice was quiet, but it cut through the cabin like a blade. "What did you just imply about this young mother?" Felicity's smile faltered. "Ma'am, I was simply addressing a passenger concern." "No." Lorraine stood, her small frame radiating fury. "You were being cruel. And we all heard it." A few passengers murmured agreement. A man near the window nodded. Felicity's face flushed. "I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate watching you humiliate a woman for the crime of having a crying baby." Lorraine stepped into the aisle. "She's doing her best." "What's your excuse?" Sienna, the younger flight attendant, touched Felicity's arm gently. "Maybe we should." Felicity jerked away. "I'm handling this." But before she could say more, another voice joined in. "She's right." A white man in his 40s, sitting 3 rows up, turned around. His accent was French-Canadian. His expression was calm but firm. "What you said was out of line." Felicity's jaw tightened. "Sir, if you don't return to your seat." "I am in my seat," he said evenly. "And I'm telling you that what you just did was discriminatory." The word hung in the air. Felicity's face went white, then red. "I was doing my job." "Your job," Lorraine said coldly, "is to serve passengers, not degrade them." Felicity looked around, searching for support. Sienna looked down. The other passengers stared, some with sympathy for Amanda, some with discomfort, but none came to Felicity's defense. Finally, Felicity straightened, smoothed her uniform, and forced a smile. "I apologize if my words were misunderstood. It was not my intention to offend." Then she turned and walked quickly toward the galley. The cabin exhaled. Lorraine sat back down, her eyes finding Amanda's. "You okay, baby?" Amanda's vision blurred. She nodded, unable to speak. Zoelle, as if sensing the shift, finally stopped crying. And Amanda sat there, trembling, holding her daughter, wondering how something so small could hurt so much. Amanda didn't move for a long time. She sat frozen in seat 32B, Zoelle finally quiet against her chest, and stared at the back of the seat in front of her. Her hands had stopped shaking, but only because she'd clenched them so tightly her nails bit into her palms. Around her, the cabin had settled back into its rhythm. The hum of engines, The rustle of magazines. The occasional cough or murmur. As if nothing had happened. As if the last 10 minutes had been erased. But Amanda felt it all, every word, every glance, every second of that humiliation, carved into her skin. Lorraine was still watching her from across the aisle. Amanda could feel the weight of her gaze, gentle but persistent. "Sweetheart," Lorraine said softly. "You sure you're okay?" Amanda nodded without looking up. "I'm fine. Thank you. You don't look fine." "I am." Her voice came out clipped, harder than she intended. She softened it. "Really. I appreciate what you did. But I'm okay." Lorraine studied her for a moment longer, then nodded slowly. "All right, baby. But if you need anything, I won't." Amanda's smile was tight, practiced. The smile she'd learned to wear when the world pressed down too hard. "But thank you." Lorraine settled back into her seat, though her eyes stayed thoughtful. Amanda pulled out her phone, earbuds, anything to create a wall between herself and the rest of the plane. She put the earbuds in, opened a playlist she wasn't listening to, and closed her eyes. But she couldn't escape her own thoughts. You should have said something. You should have stood up for yourself. You should have told her who you are. But even as the thoughts came, she pushed them away. Because what good would it have done? Felicity would have called her a liar. Or worse, she would have believed her and been even more hateful. Treated Amanda like she was trying to pull rank, playing the CEO's wife card. And Amanda had spent too much of her life refusing to be defined by someone else's power. She'd worked hard to be seen as herself, not Declan's wife, not anyone's accessory. Just Amanda. But right now, in this moment, she felt small. Invisible. Less than. She hated that feeling. Hated that Felicity had made her feel it. Hated that even after all these years, after everything she'd accomplished, the world could still reduce her to this. A woman in economy with a crying baby, too black, too loud, too inappropriate. Zoelle stirred, and Amanda adjusted her gently, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. The baby's warmth was the only thing keeping her tethered. Just get through the flight, she told herself. Just get to London. Get to Declan. Then you can fall apart. But even thinking his name brought a fresh wave of hurt. Because he wasn't here. He'd promised to be at the airport. Promised to be waiting. And instead, she'd gotten a text. Meeting ran late. Always a meeting. Always something more important. She knew it wasn't fair to think that way. Knew he was working for them, for their future. But fairness didn't soften the ache. She pulled out her phone, stared at his last message. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to tell him what happened. Wanted to pour it all out. Felicity's words, the stares, the shame. Wanted him to be angry on her behalf. Wanted him to fix it. But she didn't type anything. Because what would she even say? Your flight attendant humiliated me. On your airline. The one you built. The one that's supposed to be different. She locked the phone and put it away. 3 rows behind Amanda, Sienna Kovacs stood in the galley, hands braced against the counter, trying to steady her breathing. Felicity was beside her, aggressively restocking napkins, her movements sharp and brittle. That was unacceptable, Sienna said quietly. Felicity didn't look at her. I was enforcing policy. No, you were cruel. I was managing a situation. Felicity's voice was tight, defensive. That baby was disturbing an entire cabin. She's a baby, Felicity. Babies cry. And mothers should know better than to fly if they can't control their children. Sienna stared at her. Do you hear yourself? Felicity finally turned, her eyes flashing. You don't understand. People like her, they take advantage. They buy cheap tickets, they cause problems, and then they play the victim when someone tries to maintain standards. People like her? Sienna's voice dropped. Say what you mean. Felicity's jaw tightened. She didn't answer. Sienna shook her head, disgusted. I'm reporting this. To who? Felicity laughed bitterly. Our supervisor already backed me up. You think anyone's going to care about one passenger complaint? Maybe not. But I care. Felicity rolled her eyes and turned away. You're too soft for this job. Sienna didn't respond. She walked out of the galley, her stomach churning. She'd only been with Ascendant Airways for 6 months. This was her dream job. International flights, good pay, a chance to see the world. But right now, she felt sick. She walked slowly down the aisle, her eyes finding Amanda. The young mother was sitting with her eyes closed, earbuds in, her baby asleep against her chest. She looked exhausted, defeated. Sienna wanted to say something. Apologize again. Offer help. But she didn't know what to say that wouldn't sound empty. So she kept walking. Near the front of the economy cabin, Yannick Tremblay pulled out his phone. He'd been recording since the confrontation started. Not obviously, just his phone angled low, audio running. He was a human rights lawyer. He knew how these things went, how quickly they could be denied, dismissed, erased. Not this time. He opened his social media, began typing a caption. Witnessed blatant discrimination today on at Ascendant Air Flight JNBLHR. Flight attendant Felicity Hargrove humiliated a black mother for having a crying baby, suggesting flying wasn't appropriate for her situation. Unacceptable. This is 2024. Do better. He attached the audio clip. Hit post. Within minutes, the first comments appeared. This is disgusting. I'm never flying Ascendant again. Someone tagged the CEO. Yannick put his phone away and looked out the window. He hoped it would matter. In the back row, Lorraine Batha watched Amanda with quiet sadness. She recognized that look, that forced composure, that silent swallowing of pain. She'd worn it herself decades ago. Before she learned that silence didn't protect you. It only made the wound fester. She thought about saying something else, pushing harder. But she knew that sometimes people needed space to grieve what had just been taken from them. So she let Amanda be. For now. And Amanda sat there, eyes closed, heart aching, holding her daughter. Telling herself she was fine. Telling herself it didn't matter. Telling herself she was strong enough to carry this alone. Even though every part of her was screaming that she wasn't. 2 hours into the flight, the seatbelt sign blinked on with a sharp chime. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some unexpected turbulence. The captain's voice crackled through the speakers. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. The plane lurched. Amanda's stomach dropped as the aircraft bucked beneath her. Zoelle, who'd been sleeping peacefully, woke with a startled cry. Around them, passengers grabbed armrests, steadied drinks, exchanged nervous glances. The plane dropped again. A sickening fall that lasted 3 seconds too long. Someone gasped. A tray table rattled. The lights flickered. Amanda wrapped both arms around Zoelle, curling her body protectively over her daughter. It's okay, baby. It's okay. Mama's got you. But Zoelle was screaming now, her little face red with terror and confusion. And Amanda couldn't blame her. Her own heart was hammering against her ribs. The turbulence intensified. The plane shook violently, like a car on a gravel road. Overhead bins creaked. A bag shifted and thumped. Please remain seated. A flight attendant's voice called from somewhere up front, strained but professional. Keep your seatbelts fastened. Amanda tried to rock Zoelle, but the movement of the plane made it impossible. She could barely keep herself steady. Zoelle's cries escalated into shrieks. And all around her, Amanda felt it again, the stares. The annoyance. The judgment. A man in front muttered something she couldn't hear. The passenger beside her, the heavy-set man who'd slept through everything, was awake now, gripping his armrest, shooting her irritated looks. Amanda's eyes burned. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. No one answered. The plane bucked again, harder this time. And then suddenly Lorraine was there. She'd unbuckled, against protocol, against safety, and crossed the aisle. She slid into the empty window seat beside Amanda, just as the plane dropped again. Give her to me, Lorraine said firmly. Amanda shook her head. You should sit down. You should. I am sitting down. Now let me help you. Before Amanda could protest, Lorraine reached over and gently took Zoelle from her arms. The older woman cradled the baby against her chest, began humming. Low and steady, a melody Amanda didn't recognize but felt in her bones. Zoelle's cries softened. Not immediately, but gradually. Lorraine swayed as much as the turbulence allowed, her voice never wavering. Amanda stared at her, throat tight. You didn't have to. Hush now, Lorraine said gently. You've been holding the weight of the world all by yourself. Let somebody help. Amanda's vision blurred. She looked away, out the window, blinking hard. The turbulence continued for another 10 minutes, brutal, relentless. But Lorraine never stopped humming, never stopped holding Zoelle. And slowly, impossibly, the baby quieted. Her cries faded to whimpers, then to soft hiccups, then to silence. By the time the plane finally steadied and the seatbelt sign turned off, Zoelle was asleep again. Lorraine looked down at her, smiled. There we go. That's better. Amanda's hands were trembling. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to. Lorraine's eyes were kind, knowing. I've been where you are, baby. A long time ago. Flying alone with my son, barely older than you. And nobody helped. Nobody even looked at me. I swore if I ever saw another young mother struggling, I wouldn't turn away. Amanda swallowed hard. I don't know why it's so hard. I thought I could handle it. Because you're doing it alone, Lorraine said simply. And nobody should have to. The words landed like a stone in Amanda's chest. I'm not alone, Amanda said, but even she could hear how hollow it sounded. My husband, he's waiting in London. He's just busy. Lorraine didn't say anything. Just looked at her with an expression Amanda couldn't quite read. Pity, maybe. Or understanding. He's a good man, Amanda added, needing to say it. Needing to believe it. He works hard. He built something from nothing. He's doing it for us. I believe you, Lorraine said gently. But baby, you can have a good man and still feel alone. Amanda's breath hitched. Before she could respond, Yannick appeared in the aisle. He'd walked back from his first-class seat, a blanket draped over his arm. Excuse me, he said, his French-Canadian accent softening the words. I noticed the baby didn't have a blanket. It gets cold on these flights. I asked the attendant for an extra. He held it out. Amanda stared at it, then at him. You didn't have to do that. I know. He smiled. But I wanted to. She took the blanket, her fingers brushing the soft fabric. Thank you. Yannick nodded. Then his expression grew more serious. I also wanted to say, what that flight attendant did earlier was unacceptable. I recorded it. I've posted it online. I hope that's all right. Amanda's eyes widened. You what? I'm a human rights lawyer, he explained. I've seen this kind of thing too many times. People think they can get away with it because no one's watching. But someone's always watching now. Amanda didn't know what to say. Part of her felt exposed, vulnerable. But another part, a small, fierce part, felt seen. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, she said quietly. It's already a big deal, Yannick said gently. What she did to you was wrong, and it shouldn't be swept under the rug. Lorraine nodded in agreement. He's right, baby. Amanda looked down at Zoelle, sleeping peacefully in Lorraine's arms. She thought about Felicity's smile. Her words, perhaps flying isn't appropriate for your situation. She thought about all the times she'd swallowed her anger, her hurt, her voice. Okay, she whispered. Yannick smiled. Okay. He glanced at Lorraine, then back at Amanda. If you need anything at all, I'm in 4A. Thank you. He returned to his seat. Lorraine carefully transferred Zoelle back to Amanda, tucking the new blanket around the baby. You've got people now, she said softly. You're not alone anymore. Amanda held her daughter close, the weight of Lorraine's words settling over her like the blanket, warm, unexpected, necessary. For the first time since boarding, she felt like she could breathe. But in the front galley, Felicity stood with her arms crossed, watching the interaction with cold eyes. Sienna approached her cautiously. You should apologize. For what? Felicity's voice was ice. You know for what? Felicity turned away. I did nothing wrong. And if anyone tries to say otherwise, it's my word against hers. Sienna's jaw tightened. It's not just her word anymore. Felicity went still. What does that mean? It means people saw. People recorded. And people are talking. For the first time, something like fear flickered across Felicity's face. But she buried it quickly beneath a brittle smile. Let them talk. I have seniority. I have protections. Nothing's going to happen. Sienna looked at her for a long moment, then shook her head. I hope you're wrong. She walked away, and Felicity stood alone in the galley, her hands gripping the counter, her perfect composure finally beginning to crack. The cabin lights had dimmed for the overnight portion of the flight. Most passengers were asleep or trying to be, faces illuminated by phone screens and seatback monitors. The hum of the engines created a cocoon of white noise. Amanda sat awake, Zoelle finally sleeping soundly against her chest. She stared out the window at the darkness beyond, seeing nothing but her own reflection. Lorraine had returned to her seat but kept glancing over, a quiet presence. Amanda appreciated it, the not being alone, even if she couldn't quite articulate why. Her phone sat in her lap. She'd been holding it for 20 minutes, thumb hovering over Declan's name. Finally, she opened their message thread. Scrolled up. Past today's terse exchange. Past yesterday's logistics about the flight. Further back to 3 weeks ago. Declan, I miss you both so much. This merger is taking longer than expected. I'll be home soon. I promise. Amanda, we miss you too. Zoe smiled today. Really smiled. I wish you'd seen it. Declan, take a video next time. I want to see everything. But there hadn't been a next time. Because by the time Zoelle smiled again, Amanda was too tired to reach for her phone. Too tired to document every moment for a man who was never there to witness them. She scrolled further. 6 months ago, before Zoelle was born. Declan, I'm scared, Amanda. Amanda, of what? Declan, that I won't be a good father. That I'll mess this up the way everything in my childhood was messed up. Amanda, you won't. You're nothing like your father. Declan, how do you know? Amanda, because you're here. Because you're asking the question. Because you care. She remembered typing those words in the middle of the night, her pregnant belly pressing against the keyboard, believing every single one. Did she still believe them? She didn't know anymore. The phone buzzed in her hand. A message from Declan. Declan, meeting just ended. Should be wrapping soon. How's the flight? How's our girl? Amanda stared at the message. Her fingers moved. Amanda, she's fine. We're fine. A lie. But an easier one than the truth. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Declan, are you sure? You sound off. Amanda, just tired. Declan, I'm sorry I couldn't be there to pick you up. I'll make it up to you both. I promise. Amanda closed her eyes. How many promises had he made? How many had he kept? She typed, I know. Then put the phone away. For years earlier. The memory came unbidden, sharp and vivid. Amanda was 26, working at a community center in Soweto, running programs for at-risk youth. The pay was terrible. The hours were long. But it mattered. She mattered there. Declan was 28, a low-level operations manager at a regional airline, working double shifts, sending money back to his mother in Durban. They met at a leadership workshop. She thought he was arrogant, too confident, too sure of himself. He thought she was naive, too idealistic, too soft for the real world. They were both wrong. Their first real conversation happened at 2 a.m. in the workshop's kitchen. Neither could sleep. Amanda was making tea. Declan was stress-eating biscuits. You think you can save everyone, he'd said, not unkindly. You think you can't save anyone, she'd replied. He'd laughed. A real laugh surprised out of him. Fair point. They'd talked until sunrise. About their childhoods, hers in Soweto, raised by a single mother who cleaned houses. His in Durban, raised by a grandmother after his father left and his mother worked 3 jobs. I'm going to build something, Declan had said, staring into his tea. Something that matters. So my kids never have to wonder if we can afford food. So my wife never has to break her back the way my mother did. That's a lot of pressure, Amanda had said softly. I know. He'd looked at her then, really looked. But I can carry it. I have to. She'd seen it in his eyes. The determination, the fear, the grinding need to prove he was more than where he came from. She'd fallen in love with him in that moment. And he'd built it. Everything he said he would. Worked 80-hour weeks. Climbed from operations manager to director to VP. And when the opportunity came to buy a failing regional airline with investors, he'd taken it. Rebuilt it. Rebranded it. Made Ascendant Airways into something respected. For her. For their future family. For the life he'd promised. But somewhere along the way, the building had become the point. The work had consumed the man. And Amanda had learned to be strong. To not need him. To carry everything herself. Because that's what strong women did. Right? Lorraine's voice pulled her back to the present. You looked a million miles away, baby. Amanda blinked, found Lorraine watching her across the aisle. Just thinking, Amanda said. About your husband? Amanda hesitated, then nodded. Lorraine was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Okay. I was married for 43 years. Good man. Worked hard. Provided for us. But for the first 10 years, he was never home. Always working, always building, always trying to prove something. She paused. And I told myself it was fine. That I was strong enough to handle it. That love meant not complaining. Amanda's throat tightened. What changed? I broke. Lorraine's voice was gentle. Not dramatically. Just quietly. One day he came home, and I was crying in the kitchen, and he asked why, and I finally told him the truth. That I was drowning. That I needed him. Not his money. Not his sacrifices. Him. What did he do? He listened. Really listened. And then he changed. Not overnight. But he tried. He came home. He was present. And we had 33 beautiful years after that. Lorraine's eyes glistened. But I almost lost him because I was too proud to admit I needed help. Amanda's vision blurred. I don't want to be a burden. Baby, needing someone doesn't make you a burden. It makes you human. The words cracked something open in Amanda's chest. She looked down at Zoelle, at her perfect sleeping face, and felt the weight of everything she'd been carrying alone. "I don't know how to tell him," she whispered. "Start with the truth," Lorraine said simply. "Tell him you're tired. Tell him what happened today. Tell him you need him. What if it's not enough? What if he can't change? Then at least you'll know. And you can decide what comes next." Lorraine reached across the aisle, squeezed Amanda's hand. "But give him the chance. You'd be surprised what people can do when they know what's at stake." Amanda nodded, tears finally spilling over. Lorraine handed her a tissue, smiled softly, then settled back into her seat. Amanda held Zoelle closer, pulled out her phone, and began typing. "Amanda, Declan, we need to talk. Not about logistics or schedules. Really talk. Something happened today, and I can't carry it alone anymore." She hesitated, then hit send. 3,000 miles away in a London boardroom, Declan's phone buzzed on the conference table. He glanced at the screen. His blood went cold. The plane was quiet now, suspended in that strange liminal space between continents, between night and morning. Most passengers slept. A few read. The cabin crew moved softly through the aisles, shadows in the dimmed lighting. Amanda felt lighter somehow, after sending the message to Declan. Scared, yes. Vulnerable, absolutely. But also relieved, like she'd finally set down a weight she'd been carrying for too long. Zoelle stirred, made a small sound, then settled again. Amanda adjusted the blanket Yannick had given them, tucking it gently around her daughter's small body. "You're good at that." Amanda looked up. Sienna stood in the aisle, her expression tentative but kind. "At what?" Amanda asked quietly. "Being a mother. I've been watching you. The way you hold her, calm her, anticipate what she needs." Sienna glanced away, then back. "My sister just had a baby. She makes it look impossible. You make it look natural." Amanda almost laughed. "It doesn't feel natural. Most of the time, I feel like I'm barely holding it together." "That's exactly what my sister says." Sienna smiled sadly. "But from the outside, you both look like you're doing everything right." There was a pause. Then Sienna's expression shifted, became more serious. "I wanted to apologize again," she said softly, "for what Felicity did. I should have said something stronger. Should have stopped her." "You did say something," Amanda replied. "You were kind when she wasn't. That matters. It doesn't feel like enough. Maybe not, but it's something." Amanda looked down at Zoelle. "Sometimes something is all we can ask for." Sienna nodded slowly. "I filed a report. Officially. When we land, it'll go to management. For whatever that's worth." Amanda's eyes widened slightly. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Sienna's voice was firm now. "I've been working here for 6 months. I've seen things, small things, comments, looks that I let slide because I was new, because I didn't want to make waves. But today was different. Today I watched someone be cruel, and I can't pretend I didn't see it." Amanda felt something warm spread through her chest. "Thank you." Sienna smiled. "Can I get you anything? Water? Tea? We have some chocolate biscuits that aren't terrible. Tea would be wonderful, actually. Coming right up." Sienna returned a few minutes later with a proper cup of tea. Not the usual paper cup, but actual porcelain from first class, with a small plate of biscuits on the side. You didn't have to." "I know," Sienna said with a slight smile. "But some rules are worth breaking." As she walked away, Lorraine caught Amanda's eye and grinned. "See, people are good, baby. You just have to give them the chance to show it." Amanda sipped her tea, the warmth spreading through her, and for the first time since boarding, she felt something close to peace. An hour later, Yannick appeared again, this time with his tablet. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the empty seat beside Lorraine. "Of course," Lorraine said. He sat, then turned the tablet toward Amanda. "I wanted to show you something. Only if you're comfortable." Amanda leaned forward slightly. On the screen was his social media post, the one about the incident. Below it, hundreds of comments. "This is heartbreaking. I've experienced this exact thing. Thank you for speaking up. Ascendant Airways needs to address this immediately. That flight attendant should be fired." Amanda's breath caught. "This many people saw it? It's been shared over 3,000 times, Yannick said quietly. "People are angry. And they should be." Amanda didn't know how to feel. Exposed. Vindicated. Scared. "I can take it down if you want," Yannick added quickly. "I should have asked your permission first. I couldn't let it disappear." "No." Amanda surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. Don't take it down. Lorraine reached over and squeezed her hand. How many times has this happened to you? Yannick asked gently. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. You mean specifically? Or just in general? Either. She thought about it. The store clerk who followed her around. The woman who clutched her purse tighter in the elevator. The doctor who assumed she was a single mother before seeing her wedding ring. The teacher who asked if Zoelle's father was involved. Too many times to count, she said finally. But I've learned to manage it. To not let it touch me. Does it work? Yannick asked. Not letting it touch you? Amanda looked down at Zoelle. No. It just makes you tired. Lorraine nodded knowingly. Exhausted in your soul. Yes. Amanda's voice cracked slightly. Exactly that. They sat in silence for a moment. Not uncomfortable. Just present. Then Lorraine said, You know what I think? I think you've been strong for so long. You forgot it's okay to be soft. To be hurt. To let people see it. Being soft feels dangerous, Amanda admitted. I know, baby. But so does being hard all the time. That'll break you just as sure. Yannick nodded. My mother used to say, strength isn't the absence of vulnerability. It's the courage to be vulnerable anyway. Amanda felt tears prick her eyes again. She was so tired of crying. But maybe that was okay too. Thank you both, she whispered. You didn't have to care. But you did. Of course we did, Lorraine said simply. You're not just some stranger on a plane, baby. You're a young mother doing her best. You're someone's daughter. Someone's wife. Someone who deserves dignity and respect, not cruelty. Yannick added. And for what it's worth, your daughter is lucky. She has a mother who loves her fiercely. Who protects her. Who shows her what grace looks like, even when the world doesn't deserve it. Amanda looked at Zoelle, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm that had swirled around them both. I just want her to grow up in a world that's kinder than this, Amanda said softly. Then we make it kinder, Lorraine said. One moment at a time. One person at a time. Starting here. The three of them sat together in the dim cabin, strangers who'd become something more. Witnesses, allies, friends. And for a little while, the weight Amanda had been carrying didn't feel quite so heavy. Because she wasn't carrying it alone anymore. In the galley, Felicity watched them from a distance, her jaw tight, her hands clenched. Sienna appeared beside her. The report's filed. There's nothing you can do about it now. Felicity's eyes were cold. We'll see about that. But for the first time, her voice held a tremor. The plane flew on through the darkness, carrying them all toward whatever came next. The plane touched down at London Heathrow just after 9 p.m., the jolt of wheels against tarmac waking several passengers. Amanda had been awake for the last hour, watching the darkness outside give way to the sprawl of lights below, her stomach tight with anticipation. Declan would be waiting. They'd talk. Really talk. She'd tell him everything, and he'd understand, and somehow they'd figure this out together. She had to believe that. The seatbelt sign turned off with a chime. Around her, passengers stood, stretched, reached for overhead bins. The cabin filled with the sounds of zippers, rustling bags, murmured conversations. Amanda gathered Zoelle carefully, tucking the blanket around her. Lorraine stood across the aisle, retrieving her own bag. You got everything, baby? Lorraine asked. I think so. Your husband meeting you? Yes. He should be waiting. Amanda tried to sound certain. Lorraine studied her face, then smiled gently. Good. You two talk. Really talk. And remember what I said. Start with the truth. I will. Thank you, Lorraine. For everything. The older woman pulled Amanda into a brief, tight hug. You're stronger than you know. But you don't have to be strong alone. Remember that. Amanda nodded, tears threatening again. Yannick appeared, having walked back from first class. Do you need help with your bags? I'm okay, thank you. He handed her a business card. If you need anything, legal advice, a witness statement, anything, call me. Amanda took the card, tucked it carefully into her pocket. Thank you. Really. The line began moving. Amanda joined the slow shuffle toward the exit, Zoelle warm and heavy against her chest, the diaper bag cutting into her shoulder. As she passed the galley, she saw Felicity standing with another crew member, her face composed but pale. Their eyes met for a brief second. Felicity looked away first. Amanda kept walking. The jetway seemed endless. Amanda's legs ached. Her back ached. Everything ached. But Declan was waiting. Just beyond customs, beyond baggage claim. Waiting. She cleared immigration, collected her checked bag, pushed her cart through the nothing-to-declare lane. And then she was in arrivals. The hall was crowded. Families reuniting, taxi drivers holding signs, loved ones embracing. Amanda scanned the faces, searching for the one she knew best. She didn't see him. She pushed further into the crowd, heart beginning to pound. Still no Declan. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. 2 messages waited. Declan, landing soon? Sent an hour ago. Declan, meeting ran over. I'm so sorry. Car is waiting outside, black Mercedes, driver named James. I'll be home in 2 hours. I'm sorry, Amanda. I'm so sorry. Sent 20 minutes ago. Amanda stared at the screen. Read it again. Again. The noise of the terminal faded to a dull roar. She stood frozen in the middle of the arrivals hall, people flowing around her like water around a stone. He wasn't here. Again. He'd promised. He'd said he'd be waiting. And he wasn't here. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing the tears back. Not here. Not in public. Not again. She spotted a man in a black suit holding a sign, MRS Johnson. She walked over, each step feeling mechanical. I'm Amanda Johnson, she said, her voice flat. The driver, James, smiled warmly. Welcome to London, Mrs. Johnson. Let me take your bags. She let him. Let him load everything into the car. Let him open the door for her. Let him settle her into the back seat while she buckled Zoelle's car seat with trembling hands. The car pulled away from the terminal, merging into the stream of headlights on the M4. Amanda stared out the window, seeing nothing. James tried to make conversation. First time in London for the little one? Yes. She's beautiful. How old? 2 months. Ah, wonderful age. My daughter just had her second. They grow so fast. Amanda made a sound that might have been agreement. James, sensing her mood, fell silent. The car wound through the city, past Hammersmith, through Kensington into the quiet, expensive streets of Knightsbridge where Declan had bought their flat. When they pulled up to the building, the doorman rushed to help with bags. Amanda thanked James, tipped him, and took the elevator up to the 4th floor. The flat was dark. She flipped on the lights. The space was beautiful. High ceilings, modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the street. Everything perfect. Everything curated. Everything empty. She set Zoelle's car seat down gently, then stood in the middle of the living room, still wearing her coat, bag still on her shoulder. And something inside her cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, final breaking. She walked to the bedroom, laid Zoelle in the bassinet Declan had assembled before he left. The baby was still asleep, exhausted from the journey. Then Amanda sat on the edge of the bed. Their bed, though it had been just hers for 3 days now, and stared at her hands. Her phone buzzed. Declan, are you home? Is Zoe okay? I'm leaving now. Be there soon. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to scream at him. Wanted to tell him about Felicity, about the humiliation, about sitting in that cabin feeling small and alone while he sat in meetings. Wanted to ask him why work always mattered more. Why she always came second. But she was so tired. So incredibly tired. Amanda, we're home. We're fine. The lie was easier than the truth. Declan, I love you. She stared at the words. Once, they would have filled her with warmth. Now they just felt hollow. She didn't respond. Instead, she set the phone down, walked to the bathroom, and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her hair was a mess. Her blouse still had the spit-up stain on the shoulder. She looked exhausted. Defeated. Small. Just like Felicity had made her feel. And Declan hadn't been there to see it. Hadn't been there to defend her. Hadn't been there at all. She turned on the shower, let the water run hot. Stripped off her clothes and stepped under the spray. And finally, she let herself cry. Not the quiet, swallowed tears from the plane, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for the humiliation, for the loneliness, for the exhaustion of holding everything together, for the marriage that felt like it was slipping through her fingers. She cried until there was nothing left. Then she turned off the water, dried herself mechanically, and pulled on one of Declan's old t-shirts, one that still smelled faintly of his cologne. She checked on Zoelle, still sleeping. Then she climbed into bed, pulled the covers up to her chin, and stared at the ceiling. An hour later, she heard the front door open. Footsteps. Quick, urgent. Amanda? Declan's voice, rough with worry. He appeared in the bedroom doorway, still in his suit, tie loosened, eyes searching. He saw her in bed, saw her face, and his expression crumbled. Amanda, don't, she whispered. He froze. Just don't. He stood there, this man she loved, this man who'd promised her the world, and for the first time in their marriage, she couldn't look at him. What happened? He asked quietly. Everything, she said. And you weren't there. The words hung in the air between them. Declan took a step forward. Amanda. I needed you, she continued, her voice breaking. And you weren't there. You promised. You promised you'd be waiting. I know. The meeting. There's always a meeting, Declan. She finally looked at him, and the pain in her eyes made him flinch. There's always something more important. You're the most important. Then why does it never feel that way? Silence. Declan stood in the doorway of their bedroom, his world cracking open, and realized he had no answer. Have you ever felt like you're giving everything to someone who's not fully there? What would you say to them if you could find the words? Share your thoughts below. Declan stood frozen in the doorway, Amanda's words echoing in the silence between them. Then why does it never feel that way? He opened his mouth, closed it. Every excuse he'd prepared died on his tongue because he could see the truth written across her face. She was done hearing excuses. Tell me what happened, he said quietly. Amanda looked away. It doesn't matter. It does. Amanda, please. She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, still not looking at him, she spoke. One of your flight attendants humiliated me today. In front of an entire cabin. She suggested that flying wasn't appropriate for my situation. She looked at me, at Zoelle, at my skin, at my economy seat, and decided I didn't belong. Declan's blood went cold. What? Her name was Felicity Hargrove. And she made me feel like I was nothing. Amanda's voice was flat, drained of emotion. I sat there with our daughter, and I felt small and invisible and ashamed. And all I could think was that I wanted you there. I wanted you to hold me and tell me it would be okay. But you weren't there. Amanda. And then I got off the plane, and you still weren't there. Because there was another meeting. Another crisis. Another thing more important than keeping your promise. Declan took a step into the room, his hands shaking. I'm here now. Now. Amanda finally looked at him, and her eyes were red but dry. All cried out. Now doesn't help me, Declan. Now doesn't erase what happened. Now doesn't fix the fact that I've been doing this alone. You're not alone. I'm. Where? Her voice cracked. Where are you, Declan? You're in meetings. You're on calls. You're building your empire. But you're not here. Not when it matters. The words hit him like physical blows. He sank down onto the edge of the bed, several feet from her, his head in his hands. I'm trying to provide for us, he said, his voice rough. I'm trying to build something so you and Zoelle never have to struggle. So you never have to worry about money or security or... I don't need your money, Declan. I need you. He looked up at her. I'm doing this for you. No. Amanda's voice was gentle but devastating. You're doing this for yourself. To prove something. To your father who left. To everyone who said you'd never make it. To that scared kid from Durban who thought he had to earn his worth. She paused. But you're not proving anything to me. I already know your worth. I've always known. Declan felt something break open in his chest. Then what do you want from me? I want you to come home. Really come home. Not just your body at the end of the day, but your heart. Your attention. Your presence. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I want to be your wife, not your responsibility. Silence filled the room. Declan stared at his hands, hands that had signed contracts, built companies, commanded boardrooms. Hands that had forgotten how to simply hold his wife without checking his phone. I don't know if I know how anymore, he admitted quietly. Then learn. Amanda's eyes filled with tears again. Because I can't do this alone. I won't. The weight of her words settled over him. Not a threat. A boundary. If I don't change, he started, then we'll have to figure out what that means. She looked toward the bassinet where Zoelle slept. I won't raise our daughter in a home where she watches her mother shrink herself. Where she learns that love means being second best. Declan stood abruptly, walked to the window, his reflection staring back at him in the dark glass. Behind him, he could see Amanda sitting on the bed, so far away despite being in the same room. He pulled out his phone, stared at the screen full of notifications. Emails. Messages. Urgent requests. Then he did something he'd never done before. He opened his email, found his assistant Thandai's contact, and dictated a message. Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Cancel everything. Delegate what can be delegated. The rest can wait. Family emergency. I'll be unreachable. He hesitated, then added. Also, Pull all records related to flight attendant Felicity Hargrove. Crew roster, employment history, any previous complaints. I want it on my desk first thing Monday. And schedule an emergency review of all customer service training protocols. He hit send. Then he turned off his phone completely. Amanda watched him, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Choosing you." He set the phone on the dresser and walked back to the bed. This time he sat closer. "I'm choosing you and Zoelle. Right now. Not after this deal closes or that meeting ends. Right now. Declan, I've been a terrible husband." His voice cracked. "I told myself I was building this for you, but you're right. I was building it to prove I wasn't my father. That I was worth something. And in the process, I became just like him, absent, unavailable, too focused on work to see what was right in front of me." "You're nothing like your father," Amanda said softly. "I'm not there for my family. How is that different?" She didn't answer. Declan reached out slowly, giving her space to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. He took her hand, felt how cold her fingers were, and wrapped both of his around them. "Tell me everything," he said. "Not just what happened on the plane. Everything. What the last 2 months have been like. What I've missed. What I've failed to see." "It's a long list," Amanda whispered. "I have 2 weeks." He squeezed her hand gently. "And for the first time in a long time, I have nowhere else to be." Amanda searched his face, looking for the lie, the exit strategy, the moment he'd check his phone. But his eyes were clear. Present. Here. She took a shaky breath. "Okay." And slowly, haltingly at first, then faster, the words came. She told him about the sleepless nights alone. The terror of not knowing if she was doing anything right. The way her body still ached from childbirth. The loneliness of eating dinner by herself while he worked late. The desperate hope every time she heard his key in the lock, followed by the crushing disappointment when he was too exhausted to do anything but collapse into bed. She told him about the plane. About Felicity's smile that wasn't a smile. About the passengers who stared. About Lorraine and Yannick and Sienna, strangers who'd shown her more kindness than she'd felt in months. She told him about sitting in the arrivals hall, scanning faces, waiting for his. And the moment she saw that text, the moment something in her had finally broken, Declan listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't make excuses. Just listened, his hand never leaving hers, tears sliding down his face. When she finally finished, her voice hoarse, the room was silent except for the sound of their breathing. "I'm sorry," Declan whispered. "Amanda, I'm so sorry." "I know. I don't know if sorry is enough." "It's not." She looked at him. "But it's a start." He nodded. "Tell me what you need. Tell me how to fix this. I need you to be here. Really here. I need you to hold your daughter before she forgets what your arms feel like. I need you to ask me how my day was and actually listen to the answer. I need you to remember that the empire you're building means nothing if we're not building our life together." "Okay." His voice was firm. "Okay. And I need you to fire Felicity Hargrove." Declan's jaw tightened. "Consider it done." "No." Amanda shook her head. "Not just fire her. I need you to understand what she represents. She's not an isolated incident. She's a symptom of something bigger in your company, in the world. And if you're going to run an airline, you need to make sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else." Declan looked at her, and in that moment he saw her fully. Not the woman he'd married, though she was still that, but the woman she'd become. Stronger. Clearer. Unwilling to accept less than she deserved. "You're right," he said. "You're absolutely right." From the bassinet, Zoelle made a small sound. Both of them turned. "She's waking up," Amanda said. "She'll need to be fed." Declan stood. "Can I?" Amanda blinked. "Can you what?" "Feed her. I want to." He walked to the bassinet, looked down at his daughter. "I've missed so much. I don't want to miss any more." Amanda's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Okay." She showed him how to prepare the bottle, how to hold Zoelle, how to test the temperature. Declan's hands were clumsy at first, uncertain. But when Zoelle latched onto the bottle and looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes, something in his expression softened. "Hi, baby girl," he whispered. "I'm sorry I haven't been here. But I'm here now. I promise." Amanda watched them, her husband and her daughter, and felt the first flicker of hope she'd felt in months. It wasn't fixed. Not yet. There was still so much to talk about, to work through, to rebuild. But for the first time, she believed they might actually do it. Together. 3 days later, Declan sat in his office at Ascendant Airways headquarters. the morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. In front of him sat a manila folder marked Hargrove, Felicity, personnel file. He'd spent the last 72 hours at home. Really at home. No laptop open at the dinner table. No calls during Zoelle's bath time. No disappearing into the study for just one email. He'd fed Zoelle at 2 a.m. while Amanda slept. He'd changed diapers. He'd walked the floors when the baby cried. He'd made breakfast, burned toast and all. He'd sat with Amanda on the couch and just talked. About everything and nothing. About her fears and his. About the marriage they wanted versus the one they'd been living. It had been the most important 3 days of his life. But now there was work to do. A different kind of work. He opened the folder. Felicity Hargrove had been with Ascendant Airways for 4 years. Solid performance reviews. Multiple commendations for customer service. No formal complaints on file. But when Declan dug deeper, when he called HR and asked the right questions, a different picture emerged. Informal complaints. Passengers who'd mentioned her attitude in feedback surveys but hadn't filed official reports. Crew members who'd requested not to be scheduled with her. Small things. Ignored things. Things that had been allowed to continue because no one had been paying attention. His jaw tightened. There was a knock at his door. "Come in." Thandai entered, followed by 2 others, the HR director and the head of flight operations. "She's here," Thandai said quietly. "In the conference room." Declan nodded. "And the others?" "The passenger who filmed the incident, Mr. Tremblay, is on video call. The flight attendant who filed the report, Ms. Kovac, is also standing by. And," Thandai hesitated, "your wife asked if she could be present." Declan looked up sharply. "Amanda's here?" "She's in the waiting area. With the baby." Something warm and fierce moved through his chest. "Bring her in. She should be part of this." 5 minutes later, they were all assembled in the large conference room. Felicity sat at one end of the table, her posture rigid, her expression carefully neutral. Amanda sat near Declan, Zoelle asleep in her carrier. Yannick appeared on the video screen, professional and calm. Sienna sat across from Felicity, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Declan stood at the head of the table. "Ms. Hargrove," he began, his voice even. "Do you know why you're here?" Felicity's smile was practiced, polite. "I assume this is about the complaint filed regarding flight JNBLHR on the 15th. "It is." "Then I'd like to state for the record that I was simply enforcing company policy regarding passenger disruptions. The infant in question was causing." "Her name is Zoelle," Declan interrupted quietly. Felicity blinked. "Excuse me?" "The infant. Her name is Zoelle. She's not a disruption. She's a 2-month-old baby who was teething." He paused. "And the woman you humiliated is my wife." The color drained from Felicity's face. The room went utterly silent. I didn't know," Felicity stammered. "No, you didn't," Amanda said quietly, speaking for the first time. "And that's exactly the problem. You didn't know who I was, so you assumed you could treat me however you wanted. You looked at my skin, my seat assignment, my crying baby, and you decided I didn't deserve basic dignity." "That's not, I never." Felicity looked around desperately. "I treat all passengers the same." "Do you?" Yannick's voice came through the speakers. "Because I was on that flight. I'm white. I was in first class. And when I stood up to defend her, you immediately changed your tone with me. You can watch the video if you'd like. I posted it. 30,000 people have seen it now." Felicity's hands trembled. "I was having a difficult day. The passenger load was high and—" "Ms. Hargrove." Declan's voice cut through her excuses like ice. "I've reviewed your file. This isn't the first time concerns have been raised about your conduct. It's just the first time someone had the courage to file a formal complaint." He nodded to Sienna. "Ms. Kovac, would you like to share what you told HR?" Sienna took a breath, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "I've worked with Ms. Hargrove on 6 flights. On 3 of them, I witnessed her make comments about passengers. Comments about their clothing, their accents, their appearance. She called one Nigerian passenger, probably flying on charity tickets. She complained about a family speaking Arabic, said they made her uncomfortable. When I suggested she was being inappropriate, she told me I was too soft for the job." Felicity's face flushed red. "That's taken out of context." "Is it?" Declan asked. "Because it sounds like a pattern to me. A pattern of prejudice that this company will not tolerate." He opened another folder, slid a document across the table. "This is your termination letter. Effective immediately. You're being dismissed for violation of company code of conduct. specifically discriminatory behavior toward passengers and creating a hostile work environment. Felicity stared at the paper, then at Declan. You can't do this. I have rights. I have a union. You have a union representative who's been notified and is available to you, the HR director interjected. But the evidence is clear. You violated multiple policies. The decision is final. Felicity's composure finally cracked. This is because of her, she said, gesturing toward Amanda. Because she's your wife. If she were anyone else, this would be swept under the rug. You're right, Declan said, his voice hard. If she were anyone else, you probably would have gotten away with it. Just like you've gotten away with it before. But that ends now. Not just with you. With this entire company. He turned to the others in the room. Effective today, we're implementing mandatory bias training for all customer-facing staff. We're creating a confidential reporting system for passengers and crew to report discrimination. And we're hiring an external firm to audit our practices and culture. He looked back at Felicity. You're not being fired because of who my wife is. You're being fired because of who you are. And because I refuse to run a company where people like you can make passengers feel the way you made her feel. Felicity stood abruptly, grabbed her bag. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. I expect to, Declan said calmly. Security will escort you out. As Felicity was led from the room, Amanda let out a long breath. She hadn't realized she'd been holding it. Declan sat down beside her. Are you okay? She nodded slowly. I think so. Yannick spoke from the screen. Mrs. Johnson, for what it's worth, I think you handled that with remarkable grace. Thank you, Amanda said. And thank you for speaking up. For not looking away. It was the right thing to do. Sienna stood. Mrs. Johnson, I'm so sorry for what you experienced. I promise, not everyone at Ascendant is like her. Amanda reached out, squeezed Sienna's hand. I know. You proved that. After the meeting ended and the room cleared, Declan and Amanda sat alone, Zoelle still sleeping peacefully between them. Did that feel like justice? Declan asked quietly. Amanda thought about it. It felt like a beginning. A beginning of what? Of things changing. Of you keeping your promise. She looked at him. Not just to fire her, but to make sure this doesn't happen to someone else. It won't, Declan said firmly. I promise you it won't. She believed him. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Declan said, I called the board. Told them I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations. Promoting my COO to handle the daily fires. I'll still be CEO, still be involved in major decisions. But I'm not working 80-hour weeks anymore. Amanda's eyes widened. Declan, I built this company, he said. But I almost lost my family doing it. And no amount of success is worth that. He took her hand. You and Zoelle, you're my real legacy. Not Ascendant. You. Tears slipped down Amanda's cheeks. I love you. I love you too. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life showing you that. Zoelle chose that moment to wake, her little face scrunching up before letting out a cry. Amanda laughed through her tears, reaching for her. But Declan was faster. Let me, he said, lifting his daughter gently. Hey, sweet girl. Did we wake you? Zoelle blinked up at him, and Declan could have sworn she smiled. She knows you now, Amanda said softly. Yeah, Declan whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Yeah, she does. 2 weeks later. Amanda stood in the Johannesburg airport again, but this time, everything was different. Declan stood beside her, holding Zoelle. They were flying to Cape Town for a long weekend. Just the three of them. No work. No meetings. Just family. As they approached the gate, a young flight attendant greeted them warmly. Welcome to Ascendant Airways. Is this your first flight with us? Amanda smiled. No, but it's our first one together. The attendant's eyes softened. Well, welcome aboard. All of you. When they settled into their seats, first class this time, Declan had insisted. Amanda looked out the window at the tarmac, the planes preparing for departure. She thought about Felicity, about that awful flight, about how small she'd felt. But she didn't feel small anymore. She felt seen, valued, loved. Declan reached over, took her hand. You okay? She turned to him, saw him really there, present, attentive, hers. Yeah, she said, squeezing his hand. I really am. The plane lifted off, carrying them into the sky. And for the first time in a long time, Amanda felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Love at last isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's choosing to show up, to listen, to change. Have you ever had to fight for your relationship? or watched someone choose you when it mattered most? Share your story in the comments. Let's celebrate love that stays.